USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from US College Hockey Online at USCHO.com. An in-depth look at this week's top college hockey matchup and a preview of the other big games.
Welcome to the USCHO Game of the Week podcast for Thursday, December 9th, 2021. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. Well, it's not often we have two unranked teams as the Game of the Week, but when it's BC and BU, you got to pay attention.
And joining us this week on the USCHO Game of the Week podcast, Albie O'Connell, the head coach of Boston University. And Albie, I remember Jack Parker saying to me years ago, and I'm going to paraphrase, that you could put Boston University and Boston College on a outdoor ice rink and on a Tuesday morning, and the intensity would be there. Is this like kind of the favorite game that everybody plays this year?
Yeah, I think everyone, from both sides probably circle the calendar. And some of the games that, all games are important, but, some of the ones that, bring out the best in the teams and the fans and the craziness, the traditions, all the stuff that goes along with it. So if you were ever in one of Coach Parker's practices, the week of a bean pot or a BC game, you would know that the intensity was ramped up.
Oh, okay. What changed? What ramped those practices up? What changed in his prep?
Oh, his intensity, his screaming, his attention to detail, everything. It's the length maybe. But yeah, no, his energy always rose, and I think it's important that all the coaches' energy are there all the time, but everyone gets a little bit more excited for a crosstown rival.
Talk about some of your players here. Wilmer Skoog, right now leading your team in scoring. Junior, I remember him in the Bean Pot a couple of years ago, and became one of John Butchergross's favorite guys in terms of his name. But what does Skoog bring to your offense night in, night out?
Well, he brings, he's really a good 200-foot center. Like, he's good on draws. He's strong. He has to move his feet and play physical. He's not a burner. So if he's not moving his feet, he's not playing at a high enough pace, because he's not like I said, the fastest guy in our team, but he's good down low. He can be good off the rush. He can beat a guy one-on-one. He's got a great shot. He's got the ability to score and make a play. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. When he's good, he's really pushing his skating and pushing the pace of his game, and he's got a little bit of an edge.
The other side, defense, Dominic Fonsori, that's a guy that has risen quickly and become type of guy that gets on people's radars pretty quickly.
Yeah, he's a world-class skater. His skating is he's one of the best skaters we've had here. Since I've been here in the last 7-8 years, whatever it is. But Eichel was an elite skater, kind of like head and shoulders above everyone. But from a defenseman standpoint, his skating is better than anyone that we've had. We've had a lot of good ones too. McAvoy's obviously a good one, but if Dom was 6'1", 210 pounds like Charlie, he'd be a little bit more dangerous to deal with. But Dom is really, really dynamic.
And then Drew Commesso, obviously you've played two goaltenders this year, but Drew Commesso is the guy that people think of. He's going to be heading to the World Junior Camp. What does he do right?
Well, he's really calm. He's got good self-confidence. He knows when he's good. He knows when he plays okay. And when he just plays okay, he can rebound from that. I think he had a tough weekend out at Northern Michigan this year, and then he rebounded and played 4 really good games. Had a tough game at Cornell, for a number of different reasons. Our team, there was some spots that we should have been able to block some shots and we didn't, and we put him in a bad spot. And then he rebounded the next weekend with giving up 1 goal in each game. So he's got the ability to be consistent. He's got the ability to go on a run. And the one thing about him that kind of separates himself is is just his his freeze rate and how he can, he's pretty sticky and he can hang on to the puck, and his rebound control is normally pretty good. And in that sense, he's a little bit different than the other guys.
We're now getting to the midpoint of the season. Your team's already played more games than you were able to fit in last year. How has it been getting pretty much back to normal this year after a difficult season last season?
It's been great. It's the school's been very supportive. Knock on wood, we haven't had any stops, which we had a lot of stops and starts last year. But I think it's been good. I think we've been after a couple games in, we've been kind of hit with a little bit of an injury bug. So there's been some unfortunate, but every team goes through some troubles, and our troubles and injuries just started out early, and it's kind of allowing us to turn into the team that we want to be through some failure. So I think it's been frustrating at times. It's been fun at times, but it's been a lot of hard work to get to this point. And we feel as a staff, our team feels like our best hockey's ahead of us, and we're just going to try to continue to climb and get better every day.
Looking at the overall landscape of Hockey East and college hockey in general, I think you could make the argument that everybody is getting better year after year. Is Hockey East and is college hockey in general getting more competitive and even a higher level of hockey each season?
Yeah, I think the parity is probably as good as it's ever been. I think the COVID pushback has allowed some teams who are old to even get older. It's allowed us to get a little bit older, but some teams that, when they've got an average age on their roster, 23, 24 years old, that's beyond college, for a lot of people. So I think that over the next couple of years, as that changes, hopefully the age will go down a little bit, and we'll get some younger kids and some younger recruits in. The transfer portal definitely changed college hockey and college athletics, but overall, college hockey's tight. There's a fine line of winning and losing. The margin for error is very small. The goaltending is scrutinized at every turn. But it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to be good. It's hard to be consistent because everyone's putting a lot of money and effort and time and doing a lot of work, video work and coaching, and the level of coaching has risen quite a bit over the years, and guys are just continually trying to find ways to get their teams better, programs better, and it's made it really tight. I think a lot of schools are really willing to make the investment to be good.
You mentioned about the COVID year and the transfer portal. Are those affecting how you're approaching incoming classes over the next couple of years? How's that impacting BU?
It impacted us a little bit because we weren't expecting to have Max Kaufman and Logan Cockrell and Ty Amonte back. Ty Amonte probably would have been a medical redshirt last year and probably would have come back, but the other guys wouldn't have had that year. They would have been gone, and maybe a couple new fresh faces would have come in. We would like to build through recruiting more than the portal. I think for long-term success, probably be better to build from the draft and free agency if you were to do it in the professional ranks, because it could catch up to you. And year to year, you don't know what you're going to be able to get. But if you build through recruiting and families and not taking other people's players, the only time that we would probably take a player through the portal is if we thought a guy could come in and really be a difference maker, and we really like the kid when we're going through that process. And we've taken one guy through it, but there was a lot of vetting, and we wanted to make sure, and we were really understanding what his game was and what it could be, because he was in our league. So, but that's it's going to be interesting to see how teams do it. Some teams will stick with the portal. Some teams will, go to recruiting or do a combo or try to do both and push their recruits to stay out in junior hockey while they're still getting guys who are older. So who knows how it's going to all play out, but it's thrown a wrinkle into trying to build a team.
Albie, you mentioned the injuries you had early in the season, and I know you're getting healthier, but the opportunities that created because of those injuries in your lineup, what do those guys benefit from, and can that help you as the season goes on?
Yeah, I think it'll really help us because Nick Savannah has been able to, a guy like him, Peterson, who's obviously a high level player, he's going to go to the World Junior Camp, but it gave him some opportunity from, playing maybe in a situation to get more ice time. And Peterson now is one of our leading scorers. Nick Savannah has been one of our better stories and centerman, a guy that can really push the pace of the game. Sam Stevens, a guy that was kind of playing and in and out at times last year, has really sunk his teeth into a role as a centerman, a guy that can win faceoffs, a guy that can kill penalties. He might be arguably one of our best penalty killers and became really reliable. And if some other guys were there in those spots, maybe he doesn't get that opportunity, and we don't ever get to see it. So it hopefully can help the depth of our team as we move forward, and able to really know what guys can do and as much as practice goes, but, see what guys can do in some live game action. And as much as it's been a good thing, and there's some frustration to not having a full complement of guys, but we're going to take the positive out of it.
You will play a Boston College team this Friday. A little different than the last time you saw them. No Alex Newhook, no Matt Boldy, no Hardman, no Knight. I mean, it feels different, but this is still a very potent BC team. What have you seen on tape from them?
Well, they're good up the middle. They've got a good decor, and they've got a little bit more goalies than Spencer Knight, but I think they've gotten some pretty good goaltending too. Spencer Knight, I think, played every game all the time, except when he was at World Juniors. They do have some high-profile players through their roster still. Obviously, the likes of Boldy and Newhook and Hardman and Knight, and they did lose some horses, but as BC normally does, they bring some guys in that can really play too. So yeah, versus BC, you have to be on your toes. You have to be good defensively. I think they pose some challenge with some of the size they have, on top of some of the skill and speed. Looks like their decor's got really good depth. They got some size. They've got some skating ability. So it's going to be a really tough matchup. And it's just, I think it's going to be a pretty tight contest. So it's going to be probably going to be a 1-goal game. And I think it's going to be important for the team that's more disciplined to what they're trying to do as a group. And the team that can stay out of the penalty box. I like that team's chances more than the others.
When you look at speed versus speed, you're a very fast team. BC's a very fast team. Track meet, does that kind of satisfy what you'll do? Will you be okay with a track meet?
Yeah, it normally is a track meet to a degree. Obviously, you want to manage the puck properly so you're not having them jam it down your throat all the time. Right? It's okay if it's back and forth if you're not giving them free get through the neutral zone. As long as you manage the puck properly, they're going to get their chances because they got a really talented group. But if you can limit that by not being dumb with the puck and playing smart without it, and when there's a question of control, not cheating and playing on the right side of the puck, we'll take a fast-paced competitive game.
Well, Albie O'Connell, there are great rivalries in college hockey: Michigan State, Minnesota, North Dakota, but I think BCBU is one of the best. So we appreciate the time that you gave us today, and good luck on Friday. This will be one of the best games of the season.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
More of the Game of the Week podcast coming up.
This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from US College Hockey Online.
This is the Game of the Week podcast from USCHO.com. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. Jim, let's start with the BCBU matchup this weekend.
You mentioned it right off the top that it's rare that we ever feature two unranked teams, but these two, for one thing, they're both very good hockey teams still. BC just fell out of the top 20 this week, and BU, they went through a lot of injuries early, and they're starting to get healthy and playing some of their better hockey right now. So I think you can throw out the records when these two teams play. There's a lot of emotions, plenty of animosity. I talked to Jerry York this morning, Boston College's coach, and he said, there's something about BU when you see it coming up on your schedule that you start to really get excited. His team, itself, they're coming off of a shutdown for COVID, so they're kind of getting back to health. He said they're a healthy team, but I think this is two teams that they only play one game. I believe it ends their first half for both teams. So there's a lot to be left out on the ice after that game on Friday. Should be a real thriller.
Well, let's turn to some of the other games that are of note this weekend. And these will be picks in the USCHO Bettor's Edge column on Friday. So you can check out what the 10 Division I columnists for our website have picked, and a little bit of Jim's prognostication on the money line. But let's look first at number 3, Michigan, at number 17, Ohio State. Last weekend, Michigan split with Minnesota. Ohio State won on Friday night, lost on Saturday on the road at Notre Dame. Earlier this week on our Weekend Review podcast, we were talking about Ohio State with our co-host Derek Schooley, and Derek says, don't sleep on this Ohio State team. They're pretty good. Meanwhile, Michigan is really good on the road.
They're very good on the road, and that's the fact that these games are both away from home. Maybe that'll be a positive sign for Mel Pearson's team. But I kind of agree with what Derek Schooley said on Monday, that you can't sleep on Ohio State. This is a pretty good team. Consistency, we always say it, that the most consistent team, especially in the Big Ten, always seems to rise to the top because it's hard. Every 2-game series, it feels like you have splits. It's rare that you see teams taking 6 points in a weekend in the Big Ten. I don't know what it is, but the bounce back factor on Saturday night seems to be pretty present. And I think that, that's where I think Ohio State, even Michigan for that matter, Minnesota, all these teams that they think that they belong at the top, throw Notre Dame in there as well. It's about who's going to have the most 6-point weekends as we get into the second half of the season.
Let's look at a big matchup in the CCHA with number 1 Minnesota State at currently unranked Bemidji State. People cannot sleep on the Beavers. Tommy Serratore has that team playing very well. They've had some good weekend sweeps along the way, some splits too. Split at the beginning of the season versus North Dakota on the road at North Dakota. They won after losing at home. But this one is going to be huge for points at the top of the CCHA.
In every season, I feel like we forget how good Bemidji State can be. And then somewhere around, mid-January, early February, they go on a long streak and they start putting some wins together and they get people to sit up and take notice. But we often, don't think about them back here in November and December where, this is a good team. And if Minnesota State doesn't come and bring their best game, they'll lose a game at least in here. So, but you're right. This is a jockeying for position. Bemidji, I think, believes that they belong right there at the top of the CCHA. Minnesota State is the team with the bullseye. That's the team that everybody knows they're going to have to beat.
Number 11, Denver, is at number 5, Minnesota Duluth. This is a big-time tilt in the NCHC. Denver has been on a roll, and last weekend, Minnesota Duluth had to start their third goalie. It looks like Ryan Fanti will be back for this weekend, but boy, Denver is back with a vengeance after having an offseason last year during the whole COVID situation and the NCHC bubble.
Well, Denver took a big step forward late last year and was playing some very good hockey down the stretch and kind of just missed out in the NCAA tournament when everything was said and done. And it all stemmed back to the start of the season in the bubble and not performing, up to where I think they expected to be. For Duluth, it's a big bounce back weekend. You're back into conference play. You've got your goalie back, and that hopefully stabilizes some things. But you get some confidence issues when you go and lose 2 on the road. No matter what the situation is, if you're healthy or not healthy, you still feel something mentally, and the bounce back factor this weekend becomes really important, I think, for Duluth.
And then the last matchup on our list is also in the NCHC. Number 14, Omaha, travels to number 4, Western Michigan. Always a tough place to play if you're a visitor. But wow, Western Michigan is ranked at number 4 right now and has got to be the surprise team at the top of everybody's list this season.
For I think a lot of reasons. You know, you have a first-year head coach in there, and you don't know how that's going to turn things around. And Pat Ferschweiler, I think, has done a really great job with the Broncos. And then you start getting some confidence. You start building up the wins. You beat a team. I know they went on the road and beat Michigan. That's a really big win for them. And once you build that confidence, it's amazing where things can take you. Do I think that they will be a top 4 team at the end? We had this conversation back on Monday on Weekend Review. Maybe not, but it depends on how long they can ride this wave. And, again, I'll use the word confidence. If they can stay confident, this is going to be a very dangerous team. And maybe a team, we always talk about the NCHC. You've got your expectations of who's going to be at the top. This could be Western Michigan, could be the team that leaves somebody that had very high expectations this season, might leave them out of a home ice spot in the playoffs.
And if you're Omaha, you've got a couple of non-league games at St. Lawrence spanning around the new year. But then after Western Michigan in conference, you have Denver, North Dakota, and Minnesota Duluth on consecutive weekends. It does not get any easier for the Mavericks going down the stretch either.
That's that gamut, that you run through in the NCHC. I think that, I always have a little bias toward Hockey East, and I think Hockey East is probably the deepest league. But in terms of having some high quality opponents and teams that play really heavy, aggressive hockey, the NCHC pound for pound is as good as any other league. I mean, when you get it, if you end up getting those weekends consecutively where you're playing, North Dakota, Duluth, Denver, throw Western end if you're not Western Michigan, those are really tough weekends to survive. So we didn't even mention St. Cloud State in there, and that's a team that I know it's been at the number 1 spot in the poll at times this season. It's a real grind in the NCHC, and getting through tough months. That's how tough it can be, is when you have 6 straight games against top 10 teams. It becomes a little bit exhausting.
It's going to come down to the last weekend, isn't it, in that league?
It always does, seems to.
Boy, battle for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, that part of the standings. That's going to be big for home ice in the first round of the playoffs. And, I'm looking forward to it. But great hockey coming up this weekend. And you can check again USCHO Bettor's Edge column on Friday. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Game of the Week podcast, a production of U.S. College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.